There we go. Okay, real quick, I'm gonna restart that just because it wasn't recorded, but only a little bit. So, hadam, Hishte, Eli Roland Chejo, Jifgaron, Jimahaye, Smujanita. My name is Eli Roland Chang, and I'll be teaching you today about the Mvskoke Dictionary and specifically how to read some of the extra tidbit information within the dictionary. So how to navigate it to your best ability. And like I had said, we're focusing on the Green Dictionary by Jack B. Martin and Margaret Malden specifically. And as a short reason for why that I had mentioned just a moment ago, Lowbridge is working on about 150 years old. It wasn't written by Mvskoke people, and this one is within the last 50 years. Mvskoke people were asked and put it and their information into this one. So, and this one is the one that has the items we're talking about. Okay, there we go. Mutji, muddo, before I forgot to do that, even though I set it up and everything. Okay, what we're gonna go over today, it's a lot of different things. Some have more information to take in, some are really simple. So the order we're going in, the pronunciation guide key in this dictionary, the parts of speech and how it's shown, the person markers and how it's shown, the stress of words in the Mvskoke language, how to tell if something has nasals or tones, suppletives, which is the fancy word for verbs that have different versions depending on how many people are doing the action. So 1 versus 2 versus 3. Antonyms, which are opposites, your opposite words. And then stylistics, this is going to be like small other information that might be important to know. The bottom pronunciation key, and then other basically just means if you have questions. So today, even though we are focusing on the dictionary, we're going to be covering language because it's intrinsic. The whole point of the dictionary is to learn language, right? So you will hopefully learn something new, but at the most, you'll be really good at navigating the dictionary. And that's the hope. Okay. So with that, our first one is the pronunciation guide key. So if you have a physical dictionary, right, it's on page XIX. So right after table of contents, just a few pages in, you get right into it. XIX. And so I have, if you don't have a physical on you or it's not by you, I have a big, nice, hopefully easy to see picture that kind of shows what I think it's XX shows, I believe, because I think it starts on XIX. And so basically this section tells you how to read the sounds for this dictionary. So I have an example written here. Gotta make your faces a little smaller so I can see. There we go. So I have an example here. I'm gonna get my fancy annotate out. I can't help myself. It makes my life easy. So here, right, the first thing you'll see is your Mvskoke letter. So I'm actually using the entry right here, right? So this is the Mvskoke letter. So E, the line number. This is how you're going to see it in the dictionary pronunciation guide. And so from here on out, I think I usually call it guide, but it's the dictionary pronunciation guide. Also right there, right? So when you see I with a colon, it means E, E. Then you see an example of a word, right? Ichko. Then you see an example of the guide. So right there where that E is, that first sound, there's that E with a colon, Ichko. Then it gives you that definition of the example it gave you, horse right here, dreadcore. And then it gives you an English approximate. So an estimate of what that sound would be like in English. So in this case, it's saying the E and feed, E, E. And so this way, you know, if you pull up a word and you see this Mvskoke letter and you see this in the pronunciation guide, it's E, E. And that's how it works for all of them. So this is the long vowel section. So it's showing here, you'll see A. It'll be written as A with a colon. An example word is ofki. Here's our example written out. And you see right in that first part, A with a colon for ofki. the definition, and then an example, English, the A in father. Right? So that's what the pronunciation guide is. I'm not going to go through all of them. If you have the dictionary, you'll be able to kind of pull it out and see how it's showing you in the pronunciation guide. But I wanted to put this out there because a lot of times if you look up a new word and then you see this part, right? You might be looking at that like, what does that mean? Because it's not Muskogee, but it's not English. And especially if you're already trying to make sure your Muskogee's right, this can be really confusing to look at. So I wanted to make sure you knew where it was in your dictionary right at the very beginning, and it goes through all of the sounds, including your diphthongs, which is for some people the hardest sounds. It's like the O and oi or oi, those sounds. Okay, clear my drawings, heading this way. Okay, so now we're getting into the language part, parts of speech. So anybody remember what a part of speech is besides Tad? Because I feel like Tad knows.
It's like an adjective.
You can type or you can answer me.
Can you hear me? It says like a noun or an
Oh,
adjective.
I see someone trying to answer, but I can't hear you.
Dang. Does
You
anybody
can
else
type it
hear?
if that works.
Mahaya, Mvskoke.
I can't hear anybody. Wait, is somebody else talking too? Wait, let me make sure I got my sound working right. Oh, I bet I know what it is. I bet I don't have I got it. Okay, let's see. Pop up. Ba-da-da-dum. Testing my speaker microphone. 1 second. Pop. Perfect. Okay. There we go. Now I hear y'all. Okay, there we go. Perfect. Okay, I saw it. I saw it in the chat. Now I can hear voices. Okay, perfect. Yes, it's things like your nouns, your adjectives, your adverbs. It's what does the microphone. Can you hear me now? Okay. My microphone's not showing that you hear me, so I started doubting myself. Okay. But basically it shows you what the word actually does in the sentence, right? So our parts of speech, noun, adjective, verb, interjection, adverb. And so these are the main 5 I decided to kind of go through. These I think are the most common you're going to run into when you're looking for a word. There's definitely more. And the book actually will tell you all the different ones it has. If I pull it up right here, it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So there's 14 different parts of speech you can find in the dictionary. These 5 are going to be your big main ones. So let's use, how about the color red? Okay, so first off, we have our noun. That's going to be your person, place, thing, concept. That's like what most people think of. So ice cream, girl, rain, bucket. Those are your nouns. Adjectives. That's going to describe your noun, right? So the color of the bucket. How many buckets? What does the bucket look like? Stuff like that. Adjectives. Your verb is the action, the state, the occurrence. So eat, hear, sit, run, right? These are your verbs. And then your adverbs, and this is one that I know people used to get confused back in school. Adverbs describe your verb. So where an adjective describes your noun, it says the noun is pretty, right? It's a pretty dog. Your adverb describes your verb. So quickly, quietly, it's the way you do a verb. I run quickly. I run slowly. I talk loudly. I talk quietly. That's your adverb, right? And then last but not least is interjection. This is one that people may not know from school because we didn't say it very often. Yes, your LY words. Interjections it's a small piece of language that has some type of particular meaning that's said in a particular situation. So in English, the two examples I gave was ow and oops. So they're not long pieces of information. They're mostly a sound, but they have a meaning to it, right? I can't walk up to somebody and go, ow. That doesn't make any sense. I'm not using it in the right context, right? So ow, or I'm in pain, or oops, I dropped something. So this is what an interjection is. Example, yes, perfect. In the chat, someone wrote, hey la is one of those. Hey la. Perfect. Okay. So with a better understanding of what a part of speech is, here's how they're shown in the dictionary. I have them purple in this case, so that it's easy for us to see. Okay, so for the example of adjective, the entry would look like this. Jawdy, jawdy. Then it has the guide, right? The guide. Then it's your part of speech. So in this case, adjective is A-D-J. Adjective. Red. And we're going to go through what some of these other parts in this mean. But at the moment, we're focusing on parts of speech. So jawdy, pronunciation, guide, the part of speech, the meaning, red. Adverbs are used by ADV, adverb. So your example for that is the word heyomin, or I use the second one, heyomin. So heyomin is the other one, heyomin. So then there's your pronunciation guide. And there's two because there's two entries, right? The two different dialectal versions. Then it's your part of speech in purple, ADV, adv. And it means like this, to do something like this. One of the ones that I didn't necessarily put earlier, but it is common that is important to know, is connecting words. If a dictionary entry is a connecting word. If it is, it uses CONN for connect. So the entry I'm using for the example is momen, moen, mon, momen, moen, mon. So here's our examples of pronunciation, the pronunciation guide. Then we have our meaning. Yes, conjunction. Yes, the word in the dictionary uses connecting words. That's why I'm using it. But yes, conjunction. And then once again, here's our part of speech. And then what it means, and then. And then. So I have an example sentence off to our side for each one of these, right? Okay, Adami, Jadi, OJ, dos. So Adami, Jadi, OJ, dos. Adami, Jadi, OJ, dos. Okay. What does it mean? Anybody know?
I have a car that is red.
I have a red car. I have a red car. Automy is car. And in this case, it's going to be our noun, right? Because jadi is an adjective and it describes. It's describing our car. So then red. So for adjective. And then ojedos, I'm going to put into one clump for this. Ojedos comes from ojeda, to have. Have. This is going to be your verb, right? Adami jadi ojedos. Adami jadi ojedos. So I say, you say, Adami.
Adami.
I know there's more than one person in here.
Ottoman.
Ottoman.
But gee, Adami. Now this one, jadi.
Gotti.
Jody.
Johnny.
Ojedos.
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 But
Oh,
G,
Jados.
all together.
Ojidos.
Adami Jadi, Ojedos.
Adami.
Jados. Oh, Jados.
But G. I know to your ears it might sound like the mumble, but for me it's nice. I get to hear everybody. So I like it. And then I can actually tell if I hear something. Nice. Okay, our next one is Heyoin Mijas. Heyoin Mijas. So Heyoin, according to right here, means like this. So we know it means like this. What's Mijas?
Do it.
Say it
Do
like
it.
this.
Do it. Careful, not Magus. Mijas. Mijas. Yes, it's the imperative. Mijas. Heyo. So, and that's why it's important. So we had a good question in the chat. Someone asked, does Heyomin also mean now? And how's it different from Heyomat? So there is Heyomin, Heyomat. Those are different than Heyoween. And that's why when we look in the dictionary, some of the other things we're gonna talk about, the nasal, the stress, that all really matters. So Heyoween specifically, that one means like this. Sorry. Excuse me. That means like this. Heyowat. Heyoin. That means now. So it does change. They look the same, but they're not pronounced the same. But G. Oh, nice. Tad put a thing that you can actually search in the online dictionary via adjective, adverb, interjection, G. Okay. So me just as said is do it. It's the imperative. It's the command. So Heyoin, me just means do it like this. So I say you say Heyoin.
Ayoin.
Iowan.
Heyoin.
Ayoing.
Ayonin.
Heyoin.
Ayoin.
Heyoin.
Ayoing. Mijas.
Right? Because
Ayoin just
like we talked about with the pronunciation guide, it's very specifically E, right? E. So we gotta make sure, not in, but G. And then I say, you say, mijas.
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 Mija.
Adam, mijas.
Mijas.
Just.
But G, all together. Heyoin, mijas.
Iowan.
Heyoin. Mijas.
But G, I hear someone saying, Hayoin. And that's good. There's another dialect that uses Hayoin. And they usually spell it the exact same way. They're pronouncing it like this instead of like this. So that's a dialectal difference. So Hayoin, Heyoin, but G. Okay, and then our one for connecting word. My sentence is Home base. Mon adokira. Ah yes. Home base. Mon adokira. Ah yes. So our connecting word that we learned over here, mon. So we know this means, and then
Kun.
what's adokira?
Work.
Work.
I'm eating and then going to work.
Yes. But so I'm not teaching how to form it, but just a fun fact. These two are both in H grade. Basically what that means is in past one. So these are in the past 24 hours is what this sentence is. I ate and then I went to work. I ate and then I went to work. Home base. Mon adokira. Ah yes. Machi. Is there a difference between mon, mon? As far as the difference between momen, moen, and mon, no, it's more, I think, just speaker choice and what's more common in their dialectal area. And then even the same speaker will switch up between them all three. So there's not really any difference. It's whatever comes out naturally. Machi. Okay. Sorry, I was looking at the time and I got confused. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and move on though, because I want to get through all of them. Okay, interjection. So the interjection is by INTERJ. So interj for interjection. The example from the dictionary I pulled was mada. Mada, right? Mada. So here's our guide, pronunciation guide. There's our part of speech, interjection. and it means my or darn it, dang it, that feeling, right? So my example sentence here is my dad did not let take those. Like, dang it, I fell, I tripped. Fell. Our next one, noun. That's represented only by an N. So just a nice little N for noun. So the example I have is ilisuga, ilisuga, ilisuga. So here's the part that shows that it's a noun, means centipede. Literally, it means many legs, a lot of legs. Ilisuga, centipede. So my example sentence here is ilisuga, PJs. I see a centipede. Here, I'll write that down.
Ilisulga hijes.
Yes, Mutji. And then this one, I'll write down too. Darn it. I fell. Perfect. Okay. And then for verbs, it's represented by only a V in the dictionary. Verb. So the one I decided for this was waflida. Waflida. And I want to just kind of show real quick that the R sound is represented by that really weird symbol. I just wanted to point that out in case you see that and you're confused. It's that sound. So waflida. There's our V for verb, and it means to slice or to cut. Waflida. Our example sentence. Not lanoji unwaflibus. Not lanoji unwaflibus. So, which means cut the veggies for me. I don't feel like writing vegetables. Cut the veggies for me. Cut the veggies for me. Gee. I'm gonna keep going forward. At the end, I'll have time for questions. So if you want to come back to a sentence or something particular, jot it down, and that way we can cover it at the end. I just want to make sure I get all the information to you. Okay. Next is our person markers. This is probably one of the most important things to know how to read in your book. Mostly because this will tell you how to conjugate it. Because this is one of the most common questions. And I have these questions all the time too. So first you have to know there's 3 types of verbs in Mvskoke. There's type 1, type 2, and type 3. And a lot of times, if you ask a speaker, they won't realize there's 3 types of verbs until you point it out. Mostly because they're just used to talking, but they all conjugate differently. So as a learner, that can be really rough. So type 1 verbs. These use what we call person markers. We're going to call all of them person markers, but specifically person markers. Also sometimes known as agent markers. Agent. So these end with home base, home bitches, home beast, home bis. Those endings, the end of the word, the verb end and changes. Those endings. It's often used for verbs that you control. That's the most common time you'll see it. So our examples are to eat, to drink, to walk, to think, to study, to drive. Because I'm doing all those things, right? I'm choosing to eat. I'm choosing to move and walk. I'm thinking on purpose, right? So things I control. In the dictionary, it is represented by this symbol, which basically is the letter 1 in Roman numerals. Type 2. These use what we call patient markers. And then they are conjugated at the front. Jafiknokis, Gfiknokis, Bufiknokis, and then lack of one, fiknokis. Jafiknokis, Gfiknokis, Bufiknokis, fiknokis. These are often used for verbs that are a state or that you don't control. So the examples I have are to be sad, to be square, to be tall, to dream, to be blue, to be clean. So it's a state, right? I am sad. That is a state. It is the state of clean. It is the state of the color blue, or things you don't control. You're tall or you're short. You don't choose to be tall or short. You know what I mean? So that's a good way to think of type 2. It's represented by the Roman numeral 2 in the dictionary. And then last but not least, we have type 3. I'll look at the chat as soon as I'm done explaining. Type 3, these use what we call dative markers. Dative markers. And that has its own fancy meaning. I'm not going into that. Don't worry about it. It's okay. The important part is knowing how to conjugate it right now. So these also conjugate at the front, but they use different front conjugations. Unnokis, ginnokis, gunnokis, and innokis. So they use front and it's different. Unnokis, ginnokis, gunnokis, innokis, right? Often, oh, and then for context, for each one, the first one is I. So this is I eat, you eat, we eat, he or she eats. I am sad, you are sad, we are sad, he or she is sad. I hurt, like I'm in pain. You hurt, we hurt, she or he hurts. That's what those mean for context. I forgot to really say that. They're often used for verbs that affect you. They affect somebody. They may not be the exact thing, they affect them. So examples, to be sick, right? Actually not to be sick, to be hurt is really what this one is, to be hurt. And so when you're hurt, it's affecting you. To receive, someone else is doing the action of sending something, you get it, right? You're affected by it. To have free time. That one's more conceptual and abstract. To have fun is one of these, which is also abstract. And then to be fond of. So the type 3 verbs tend to be a little bit more abstract when being explained in this way, but they're represented, forgot to do it, via just the letter D. And then other times you'll see this particular pattern, 3, semicolon, D. So when it has those, you know you're going to use this form. And I'm looking at the thing real quick. Same sound. Yes. Conjugation change. Nice. So I will be going on when a verb has more than one type. I'm actually going to move there in like 2 seconds. So perfect. And then to dream. I don't think I do to dream in a sentence, but I do have one that's like to dream. So I'll show that in a little bit. Okay, share a link to this infographic. After this, this is actually not posted yet, but we'll have the PDF version of this once we have the YouTube up. So you will get the link to this. It just won't be yet. Okay. So we got our types, our 3 types of verbs. So then, what does it look like in the dictionary? So I, once again, made it purple because I guess I just like making it purple. So a type 1, right? It's represented by our Roman numeral 1. So you have your entry, in this case, sigida, right? It says our verb. It has the number 1 and number 2 because there's more than one definition. In this case, we're looking at this one, to stab. And it shows this symbol, to stab. So what you need to know at this second, well, I guess I'll go into it too, but I will go into that. The first one is the one you're going to use for who does it. So to stab. So in this case, sigies, I'm stabbing. I'm not saying what I'm stabbing, but I'm stabbing. I'm stabbing something. I am stabbing. Maybe I'm stabbing a pillow with a fork, you know. Next, 2 with the Roman numeral 2. For our example, it's ohogida, which means to cough, to cough, ohogida. You'll see it says 2/1. In this case, we're looking at this first one. So 2. So this sentence, ajokiros. Ajokidos. I am coughing. I am coughing. And then our type 3, our D, type 3. In this case, I chose endogida. It's one that's probably very good to know. It means to be ready or to get ready. Endogida. So here it is. Our D. So the word I chose was jindagiba. Jindagiba. Which is, oh, I don't know why I started with the letter C. It means, are you ready? Are you ready? I wanted to make a quick note too. You'll see, I'll put this in, how about pink? These guys right here. It's because in the dictionary, if it's obviously a type 1, it doesn't always say type 1. But if you don't know what is an obvious type 1, that can be kind of unfair. So a lot of times an obvious type 1 ends in ida. So if it doesn't say anything and it just says ida, a good guess is it's a type 1. Type 2, same thing. If it doesn't say what it is, it says it's basically saying, oh, well, it's obviously a type 2. Well, what that means is if it ends in a long E by itself, it's probably a type 2. Type 3s, I have the asterisk because they're a little harder. A lot of times they'll start with EN before the rest of the word, but it's not guaranteed. EN has a lot of meanings, and so sometimes it's not a dative. It's not a type 3 verb. So you just gotta be kind of careful for that one. For that one, I would wait just to see if it says D. If you're unsure, you can try it with a speaker or ask somebody and see if it sounds right or wrong. But this is kind of a way to have an idea. Okay. With that, yes, I am coughing right now. It's a joki. Or wait, sorry, a johogi. Yes, it's a johogi. I knew that didn't sound right. A johogidos. Yes, I was like, that doesn't sound right. A johogidos. Matji. A johogidos. Pretend there's an O right after that H. Mudo, thank you for catching that. Okay. So what does it mean when there's a semicolon? Because, right, that came up. This is basically, oh, sorry, it's because I was choosing in my color. Sorry about that. This is what, when you were talking about the, when there's multiple entries, this is what we're talking about. So when it's the semicolon specifically, it indicates that the main person doing the verb takes the first marker, sorry, not necessarily type 1, but just the first marker. And the person affected takes the, let's go with the second marker, the second marker. So what that means, sigida, I'm using that one again, to stab, right? It had a semicolon. It's a 1, semicolon 2. So that means the person doing the verb uses type 1. The person who is affected uses type 2. So here's our type 2 verb, our type 2 piece, and our type 1 piece. So jasigiyitjis, jasigiyitjis. You're stabbing me. Jasigiyitjis. You, right, are stabbing me. You, the one doing the action, is affecting me. Jasigiyitjis. You are stabbing me. This is also the word we use a lot of times with needles, like if you're at the doctor and you have to get a shot. Another example right here is ohyokida, ohyokida. And that means to creep up on or sneak, right? So once again, the first one is the conjugation type you use for who's doing the action. The second one is the person affected. So, yo get junks. So type 2, type 1. It junks. Itch comes from the you. Unks is the past. So you snuck up on from us. You snuck up on us. Mvskoke junks. Mvskoke junks. You snuck up on us. Okay. And once again, I know I am going fast, but I just want to get you all this stuff. I might go over a little bit just to make sure I get everything. So if it goes over and you want to stay, you're welcome to stay. Okay. Slash. So for the slash, it indicates that a verb can change between two forms depending on circumstance. Ohogida is one of these options to cough. What that means, you're probably using the first one, maybe you'll use the second one. This is because type 2 often means out of your control, right? Versus type 1 tends to mean on purpose. So if you're coughing on purpose, you have to use type 1, but usually that's not the case. So it's usually type 2. I'm coughing and I can't control it. So our two examples, this is our type 1, this is our type 2. Ohogedos. Ohogedos. Maybe you're being, I don't know, snotty. Ohogedos. Right? I'm coughing on purpose. Ajohogedos. I'm coughing and I can't stop or I can't control it. Ajohogedos. Right? Another one that this is really common with is latkida. Latkida, which is to fall. I used that one earlier, to fall. You're usually gonna use type 2 because usually you don't fall on purpose. It also means to drop. So it also means you don't drop things on purpose very much. However, you might drop on purpose. You might fall on purpose. So type 1. So we have this one, type 2 first, and then our type 1. So, Gelategus. I fell on accident. I did not mean to. Gelategus. I fell. Lutgase. I'm falling. Lutgase. I'm falling. Right? Maybe you're doing it for a play, or once again, maybe you're just being a little brat. I'm falling. So, lutgase. So that's what those mean.
So for that second person, that example for a hogeda, you have is it a Jehogedos?
Yes.
So sometimes I see like an N after that that sound, like or
Yes, that is
Is that a different kettle of fish?
that's for the one that's represented by the D.
Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself then.
Yeah. Well, we did look at that. It was for not too long, but that was like the inokida, which is to be sick. Inokida. So the I am sick, you use unokis. Unokis. And so that was that one, which was a few back. I guess, did I not put any actual example sentences? Oops. Some example sentences. Let's do those real quick. I only had a few hours to put this together. So some examples are in Hisida. And what's another one? I used it a few slides ago. In Hisida.
Noki.
Let's do in Hisida. In Hisida. Okay. So these both dictionary items, once again, in the dictionary, you'll see then this after them. So the D for dative, so type 3 verb. And like I said, they tend to start in that EN. So what you do is, for in Hisida, for example, I is gonna be your un. So which means I'm having fun, or it's good to me, or things like that. So if you enjoyed something, say someone is like, oh, are you enjoying the party? Anhisidos. I'm enjoying it. Inhosli then is to be lazy or to be bored. So let's say that you walk into the room and someone was supposed to be doing their homework and they didn't. You might be like, you're lazy. So that'd be Jinhoslis. 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 You're lazy. Jinhoslis. So those, before I had the I, you, I, you, we, he or she, it's the un for I, Jin or you, we is boon, he or she is in, and then all the ends can become M's if they're next to something that causes that, which is usually an M, a P, or a vowel. But good question, good question. Okay. I also wanted to make the note, which I actually used just now. Remember that the entries may not always be perfect. If you see a person marker in the dictionary, but a speaker says it's more natural to say it a different way, listen to the speaker. Because they're the keeper of the language. They know what they're talking about. I want to give the examples of enhotli, because if you look in the dictionary, enhotli is actually listed as a type 2 verb like this. But I don't know any speakers that use it that way. And I even talked with them today to double check before I made this, because I was like, I've never heard someone say Jun Hotlis. They're like, no, that doesn't sound right. It's Hotlis, which is actually the D. Right? So that happens at times. It's not super often that I do see, I don't even know if it's a mistake or if it's just that the speaker who helped work with this spoke differently. But like I said, listen to the speakers around you. So if a speaker says, use it this way, use it that way. Okay, next is stress. It's the next thing that we'll see that'll help us say our words correctly in the dictionary. Okay, what is stress? Because you might be thinking of a different type of stress. So stress is what part of the word is held longer or said louder or higher in the language, and it changes the meaning. So I wanted to give you some English examples because I feel like that tends to help. Sometimes it's hard to think of it in this other language. This word right here has 2 different meanings depending on how I say it. Present, present. Present, present. It changed the meaning, right? This is a gift. And this is to do what I'm doing right now, a presentation, right? In this case, I'm going to write to show, right? Present, present. That's what stress is. So the stress is the part that is emphasized. Our next word right here, record, record. On this one, record, record. Exact same word, but stress is different, completely different. This is a disc that plays music, and this is what you do to get the music on the disc. Next, this word. The first version, object, object. The second one, object, object. This is a thing, and this is to disagree. So stress is really important. It's important in English, it's important in all languages. The dictionary will show you where the stress in the word goes, which is super helpful because otherwise it can be really hard to understand someone if your stress is in the wrong spot. So here's how it's shown in the dictionary. This part right here, that guide, it has a piece of information that tells you where our stress is. And it's the mark above the vowel. It's that thing. Boop. So in this case, these are our 2 options of how it might be pronounced. Ova or ova. We can tell by looking at the guide, the O, the long O, is the one that has the stress. So we know it's ova, ova, which means in a location. This word, it can either be this one or this one. Our stress is here. It's over the I. So it could be Godi, or it could be Godi. The correct answer is Godi. So if I'm saying this in a full sentence and I'm talking fast and I say Godi, it may not sound like frog to a speaker or to a listener. Gori. Gori hijes. Gori hijes. Gori hijes. If you did gori hijes, it doesn't sound like frog anymore. Gori hijes, right? Gori. This one is really common to pronounce wrong when you're learning because it has 3 syllables. And look where the stress is. It's on the last one, right here. So some people, I didn't even give you all 3 options. Some say Yanawa when they're learning. So Yanawa. This is Yanawa. The correct one, Yanawa. 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 So not Yanawa, not Yanawa. 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 Your cheeks. Yanawa. So being able to read stress is really important. Hey, nasals and tones, this is also really important. And this goes back to the question earlier about now versus like this, nasals and tones. Okay, first, what is a nasal? So it's the sound, it's when you're making the sound in your nose. So in English, it's what we think of as a whiny sound. I don't wanna, right? That's your nasal, way up here. So I'm gonna say the 2 words, and I'm gonna show how they're different by saying them. So, heathly, 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 heathly. One more time. This side will be 1, and this side will be 2. Heathly, 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 right? It means something different. Okay, second one. We're now on this row. Afajki. Afajki. Versus number 2. Safajkuzi. Safajkuzi. Afajki. Safajkuzi. This one. Mothki. Mothki. This one. Mothmogi. Mothmogi. Mothki. Mothmogi. Mo. Right? You can kind of already see what the pattern is, what's changing. We're going to talk about it in a second, but it's that little tail. That's how we can see it in the dictionary. There's 2 ways in the dictionary actually to see it. Okay, versus now, what is tone? Tone. So that's the sound of the vowel moving in a specific way to add meaning. So each one of these, column 1 is wrong. Column 2 is correct. 2 is the one that will have the tone added. So let's see if you can hear where the tone is, and I'll draw it in a second. So the first one, wrong, right? Estongo. Estongo. The second one, that's correct. Stongo. Stongo. Okay, listen again. Estongo. Estongo. Number 2, the correct one. Stongo. Stongo. So if you're hearing it right here is where our tone is. Stongo. Stongo. Right? Another one. The second line. The first one's wrong. Or technically the first one's just a different verb. Let me do actually, no, this works. This one is the present tense of the verb. The second one is the past tense, and it uses a tone. So first one, it just means I am eating. Home base. Home base. Home base. The second one, this is now in the past. It has a tone. Home base. 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 Right there. Our tone is right there on the I. Second one, same thing. One is, well, in this case, one is the action of sitting, and the other one is sat, like is sitting. Okay, first one, leges, leges, leges. The second one means that you are already sat down. Leges, leges, leges. So, leges, leges. Right here. So if we don't have our tones right, someone could be confused. If they see you, it's not as confusing, but it just sounds wrong because it's the difference of saying leges versus leges, right? I am in the middle of sitting versus I am sitting. Gee. Okay. Then, are they all the same rising tone? My brain wants to say no, but I don't have the examples to back that up right now. So maybe, if I think of any, maybe we can add them to the description in the YouTube. I can't think of any right now, but I don't know. I'm hesitant to say, yes, they're all rising tone. But a lot of them are, the ones in my head at least. They're more like, we call it falling tone because it goes up and down. So go, ma do, right? So I think of it more as falling, but depends, I guess, on how you would hear it. Okay, so nasals in the dictionary. There's two ways that nasals are written in the dictionary. Either in the Mvskoke spelling, and it has that little tail on all of them, right? Or sometimes it's not shown in the Mvskoke spelling, sometimes it's in both. But in the guide, it's shown with this N, the tiny N next to it. And that's even if it has the colon after it, if that tiny N's there, it's in your nose. Just remember, N is in your nose. Nose. So our word here that we used, we can see right here, it uses it, and right here. Sa pač kurzi. Sa pač kurzi. Right? Sa pač kurzi. Sa pač kurzi. Very happy about something. It has a lot of meanings, but that's the base feeling, is to be very happy about something. So, sa fač kurzitos. Sa fač kurzitos. I'm so happy about something. Sa fač kurzitos. Most mogi. Excuse me. Most mogi. So you can see it both in the O here and right here. Most mogi. Most mogi. And this, we didn't actually cover the word part, but it's in your dictionary. It means participle. Continuously bubbling up. So our example sentence is, hela, most mogidos. Hela, most mogidos. Goodness, or wow, keeps bubbling up. Mogidos. And once again, that nasal does change meaning. So it can be important to keep it. There's a bunch of different reasons it changes meaning. Like it strengthens something and makes it a deeper degree. It might mean that something keeps happening. And those are all different lessons. But the important thing to know is if it has a nasal in the dictionary, pronounce it with that nasal, because it does change its meaning. And then the tones, how you see the tone in the dictionary. There's only one way it's ever shown, and it's only in the pronunciation guide. And it's with the little hat. The little hat. I think it's actually called a
Circumflex.
Thank you, circumflex. I was like, I can think of it, circumflex. But I call it a hat. And if you
I call it a hat too.
if you ever want to write it, you can literally on Google just write A with a hat and that'll come up. So your circumflex, your hat, that is going to show that tone change. So a really common word that a lot of us know is thank you. So you can see in the English or in the Mvskoke, it's written with nothing, but in the pronunciation guide, there's your tone. So it's not mado, it's mado, 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 right? You'll never hear someone go, mado, mado. So it means thank you. Amane jitjat, mado, jigajs. Amane jitjat, mado, jigajs. So thank you for helping me. Another one is sasagwa. Sasagwa. Now I say this word with a nasal. The elder that taught me uses a nasal for this word. The dictionary version does not. So take that as you will. The dictionary would be then sasagwa, sasagwa. But I'm used to the way that the elder who taught me that word says it, which is sasagwa. But you can see that first A, it's got its hat, so it has a tone. Sasagwa. It's not, if I can even say it that way. Sasagwa. It's not sasagwa. Sasagwa. So it has the tone, but this is still the important piece. So sagwa. 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 Goose. Ma sagwa hachi fachan oflikidos.
Ay
That
ba
goose-
Hanes? Ma
Adam?
ay ba Hanes?
Oh, okay. And you'll be able to see this on YouTube later if you ever want more. I know I have a lot I wanted to pack into this. So if you have to leave now, it is 7:30. I'm gonna keep going. A lot of the last ones are fast, so I'm gonna keep going. But Mado for anybody who came, who does have to leave.
Hijatis.
Paramji dasis. But yeah, so one more time. Ma sa sagwa hachi fachan oklikidos. The goose is running towards the creek. Goose is running towards the creek. Machi. Okay. Next is the supplicatives, which is the fancy word for the verbs that have different versions if there's multiples. Okay, so remember, I have talked about this in the past, but there are definitely plenty of people here that have probably never had me as a teacher. So quick note, some Mvskoke verbs actually change form if there's more than one person doing the action. They are the minority of the verbs, but it is still very common. So an example is legida, to sit, a very important and common word, legida, to sit. Legida only means for one person. If two people are sitting, now it's gagida. If 3 or more people are sitting, now it's abogida, which is 3 or plus people. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. Our verbs will change sometimes, depending on how many people are involved. So I wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that because someone in here may not have seen that before, but that is the case. So remember, legida, gagida, abogida, a bunch of people. Okay. So then in that case, how do we find it in the dictionary? How do we know if this is one of those words? Okay, if a verb has a different form for multiples, it will actually list them in the dictionary and that entry. And the entry will specifically tell you how many that form refers to. Very, very helpful. So our first one is ayida, a very common and important word. It means to go. Ayida. We say this word all the time. Ayida. You'll see too in the dictionary, it's written as ayida. And when we use it in a sentence, it's going to become an a. Ayes. There's a whole reason for that. Don't worry. If you write it like this with the V, people will still know what you're talking about. They might just think you spelled it wrong. That's okay. But anyway, ayida. So it says to go, says what it means, and then in the parentheses it says of one. Then underneath that verb in the same entry it says ahoyida. And then it has the pronunciation and then only the words of two. It doesn't have any other information because we already know it's a verb, right? Because this one was. We already know how to conjugate it because it already says which version. We just need to know what the form is. So ahoyida of 2. And then abiyida of 3 or more. So if you look at ayida in the dictionary, it'll look like this. Ayida to go of 1. Underneath it, ahoyida of 2. Abiyida of 3 or more. Another example, likgida or likida, when it comes to likida. To run, specifically though, only one person to run of one. Underneath its entry, we have Mvskoke, which is now two people running. Mvskoke. And then underneath that, Mvskoke, of three or more, Mvskoke. So if I say Likes, I am running. Mvskokes, we are running. Mvskokes, we are all running, right? However, I wanted to make a note, which is what shows right here. If you look up a word and it's not the of one version, it's not the singular, it will tell you, but it won't tell you what the singular is. So it'll say Mvskoke, it'll say it's a verb, it says to run, and it has the of three or more and the type. But it won't give you Likida, Mvskoke. It won't have those. It'll just have it. But what it's doing is not only has it told you it is a multiple version, now that you have the definition, you can go look up what the other one is. So now if you look up to run, it's always going to have the singular version first. So if you look up to run, it's going to say Likida, and then Mvskoke, and then Mvskoke. So I just want to give you that note, because sometimes if you hear a new word, say you heard abiagis, and you figure out abiagis, oh, it's abiada. What is abiada? Then you look that up. I want you to know this is how it'll show. So it'll show the word, it'll have that verb information, how you conjugate it, the definition, how many it is, but it won't tell you it's a part of the ayada trait. So I just want to let you know how you would navigate that. So if you find it, you just then look up the English side of that word. So you find Mvskoke, you want to know how to say of two, you look up to run, and it'll have of two in. Okay. A really fast one is antonyms and opposites. Antonyms just means opposites, right? So the way it shows it in the dictionary, it'll have this little symbol, which is two arrows pointing at each other. And it'll look just like this in the dictionary. So, hey, adjective, hot, uses type 2, the symbol, kasapi. And so it won't tell you what that means because this already shows you what it means. So kasapi doesn't mean hot. It means the opposite. So it means cold. So if this is hot, this is cold. So this is what it looks like for the word tall. Mahi, adjective, tall. And then it shows this. So it's not saying, oh, gojokni is another word for mahi. It means gojokni is the opposite. It means short. So that's what this symbol means. If you ever look something up and you see that, you've learned two new words because you've learned the word you looked up and the opposite word. Okay, stylistics. We're almost there, almost there. Okay, what are stylistics? So these are labels that are used in the dictionary to explain a little bit more background on the entry in the dictionary. A lot of times what it's doing is it's explaining who uses it and when. So examples of some of the common ones would be FLA. This means that it's used by Florida Seminoles. So Florida Seminole Muskogee speakers. Musk means it's used by Muskogee speakers in Oklahoma. Oklaw means it's used by Oklahoma speakers, Muskogee and Seminoles, but specifically in Oklahoma. Sem means it's used by Seminoles in Florida and Oklahoma, but specifically Seminoles. And then there's imitative, and it means a term in which the sound is symbolic of the activity. I'll give an example of what that means. Some other ones you'll see is, how is it written? They're right here. The word archaic, for example, that means it hasn't been used in anything since 1900s, I believe is usually what it is. So it hasn't been used by a speaker or written anywhere after 1900, archaic. So it's very old. And then there's like older, and that means it might sound old fashioned. So it gives information, right? So looking at examples. I have us 3 examples to look at. Our first one is my favorite to use for this example, doba, or doba. So the first meaning is scaffolding, but then we have Okla and we have Fla, Oklahoma and Florida, right? For the Okla, it says bed, but for the Florida, it says table. So what this shows us, we're able to look at this word and know off the bat that doba means something different depending on if you're talking to someone in Oklahoma versus Florida. If you talk to a Florida Seminole, they're going to think of a table. If you talk to an Oklahoma Mvskoke speaker, they're going to think of a bed, right? Which is very different. I'm going to go lay on the bed, but you're in Florida, it's going to sound like I'm going to go lay on the table. So you need to know, the context. This one, for example, onji. Onji. It's listed as FLA, so Florida soda pop. What we can tell from this, we're able to know that an Oklahoma speaker will not recognize or use this word. Maybe they recognize it if they know some Florida speakers, but they won't use it and they won't consider it Oklahoma Mvskoke. Onji. I did use it once because I found it in the dictionary before I knew how to understand this, and a speaker told me only Florida people use that. No one understands it. So I've actually found a new way to say soda. But yes, so that's important to know because I found out, oh, no speakers in Oklahoma use this word. And then we have just a sakeda. And this one has the imitative. It means to rattle, like a rattlesnake or dry leaves. Imitative, it's imitating the sound to create a word for it. Right? That's the sound. So in Mvskoke, the way you would explain the sound is So the word is just a sakeda, to rattle, like a rattlesnake too. So, like I said, from this, we're able to know right off the bat that this has more meaning than just the word to rattle. Okay, I do see that there are chat. I'm going to do that at the very end so I can get them all at once. Okay. Okay, and then last but not least, before we get to that part, is the bottom pronunciation key. I just wanted to give everybody a heads up because I don't think I even realized this till today. But if you're in the Mvskoke section of the dictionary, the bottom of the page has a guide on what all of the sounds mean. So right here, the bottom of the page, it literally says the letter A in bold, so in the Mvskoke part, is the A with a colon, which is the sound of ah from rod. The C, which is used as a C in the guide, is the ch and lunch. I never noticed that before. So I thought that was a good thing to point out, was at the bottom of the Mvskoke section, it actually has a guide on the pronunciation. If you ever forget and you're looking at a word, you can go back down there and it has a guide for you, at least a quick version of the guide. So I thought that was really nice and really helpful. Okay. So Muddo, I do know that there are aboka, so I'm not even going to ask aboka ojacha. I know there are. So I'm going to go to this page. I made it nice and white so that I have plenty of space to write stuff. And now let me look at the chat real quick. Okay. It's really hard to scroll on this easily, so I apologize on how long it might take me. Okay. Where's the slash in the dictionary? Okay, yes. So it's the markers option, but the markers necessary. Okay. So to go on some of these questions off the bat so the first question we're looking at is from, is it Kian or Kian?
Keon Charge of Cruz.
Kian. Okay. So the Kian is asking, is the, let me actually draw it. This marker optional, but the single one.
Right.
That's-
This was in the context of when they were both there, so you actually already answered this question.
Perfect. Awesome. Where's the slash in the dictionary? The slash is when we see these. So you'll see, not that one. You'll see that squiggle, and then you'll see I/I, or you'll see I/I, or you'll see I/D. So some of these different ones, you'll see those slashes in that part, right? And that's after the definition. So it gives the word, then the definition, or word, and then the guide, the part of speech definition, and then it'll give you that. And that'll give you your, what am I conjugating, how am I conjugating, and why. I also want to make the point, because I didn't get to, is that if you see this, let's see, or no, I did get to, but I didn't get to do it with the one I was thinking of. So I'll use Mvskoke. So I, and then D, and a verb would be Mvskoke. This means to visit somebody. To visit. So it would have this. I, semicolon, D. What that means is the person who does the action, right, is going to use type 1. The person who's being affected by it is going to use type 3, right, the dative type. And so what this looks like is Jin Jugubi Jays. Jin is the type 3. Ace is the type 1. Right? So what I'm saying is I am going to visit you, or I am visiting you. Like I'm on the way. Jin Jugubi Jays. I am visiting you. Right? So that's another combination you'll see very often. So I just want to make that note too. Okay. Now let me scroll down. Definition. It bores me versus I am bored. So I learned that recently. This is how a speaker told me the difference, because I was trying to explain that something was boring. Long story short, I don't like fishing. And me and another learner, we were both talking in Mvskoke, and I was trying to say that I find it boring. Like I think it's boring. And that's why I don't particularly enjoy it. So, oh, I got to turn my thing back on to let me write. And hopefully is to be lazy or generally bored. But this is the word that the speaker used was enhoflagida, when I want to say that it was boring, because what it is literally doing is saying it makes this age, makes means makes, it makes this person bored. So unhoflis, I am bored. Unhoflagus, it bores me, it makes me bored. Unhoflagus. And so that was something I actually learned like last week, because I didn't know how to say the difference between the two. Okay. And then, like I said, are they all the same rising tone? I think a lot of them are. They aren't all. I'd have to think of an example. I do think having a lesson on tones will be really good, because they are so important and they're not written in a lot of places, and they can completely change the meaning. And that's why, like, one of the big things I always bring up to make sure you watch your tones once you learn what they mean is this. They look the exact same. They come from the word kislida. which means to learn / to know. And English, to learn and to know are very different concepts, right? If you're learning something, you don't know it yet. If you know something, you're not learning it. You know what I mean? Well, it's because it's all about tone. This one has tone. So this one is to learn. And this one is to know. So this one is kisles, kisles, kisles. I'm learning. Kisles, kisles. There's not a big change. The second one, kisles, 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 kisles. I know. I'm learning Mvskoke. Mvskoke kisles. I know Mvskoke. Mvskoke kisles. Mvskoke kisles. Very similar. I'm still, of course, getting better and better at it. And it's also used for, like I said, past one. So it's a very important thing to know. We probably do need to do a whole thing on just tone. It's not written in a lot of places. So
Hi, sorry, I was the one who asked the question. I just wanted to ask really quickly. So if it has a circumflex at all, does that just mean that there is some amount of intonation, even if it's not exactly the same kind, I guess, if that makes sense?
yeah, it's definitely going to have a tone. Yeah. And
Okay.
I would say for now, a good guess would be once again, I noticed falling tone. So the boom tone. So
Okay,
go,
okay.
kisles. To me, those are the same.
Monday.
But good question. Okay.
Monday.
Does archaic mean stop using it? What I'm gonna say is archaic means there is a less chance that someone's gonna know what you're saying, and you might sound funny using it. Like there might be speakers that'll be straight up like, I don't even know that word. Like that's not Mvskoke. There's a chance that might happen. So I think bringing back archaic words is pretty great, you know, that they're part of our language. However, they're not used in everyday speech yet. I guess I would stray away from them while you're trying to learn how to communicate. And then once you got that down, then just start sprinkling it with all the old words you want, I guess, right? Yes, it's like saying thou in English, like it does sound old. Now, another type of entry is, I think it's just called old word or older word. And that just depends on some speakers. I believe the word honifla and wahala are listed as older words, but we use them here. Speakers here use both kasapofa and honifla, wahala, and ligot hofa. We use them interchangeably. So older word is not always going to be like oh, I shouldn't learn that. It's that one's more of a maybe. Archaic though is usually pretty old. And then just for context, those are words for north and south. North and south have their own names, and they also have a secondary name. Okay, and then, oh yeah, that's cool. Oh, what's the other way to say soda from an Oklahoma speaker? Okay, so depends on the speaker. I have one of the speakers we use sorty pop. So sorty pop. I'm gonna get some sorty pop. And then another way is wikasapuji. This is the one that I use. I try to stay away from Creeklish as much as possible, only because I think it makes for better practice when you're learning. But wikasapuji is the other form that I have heard used. So I use wikasapuji here, but there are some speakers here that also just use sorty pop. But I don't feel like there's ever been a moment where they didn't understand me when I use wikasapuji, even if only some speakers use it regularly. So we use both. And then Onomatopoeia. Yes, the imitative is like an onomatopoeia, but it's take an onomatopoeia and make it more powerful because now it can be a verb. Because we don't usually say, I boom the bomb. It's the bomb goes boom, right? So in Muskogee, we can take an onomatopoeia and make it a verb. So that's what imitative kind of means is that. So what do you bought this? I remember in one of our last classes, Elder, which was with us, didn't recognize the word gabisla. But she did get gabisla. Yes, and see, and that's an interesting thing. It also depends too on some history. Has the speaker been away from other speaking communities for a while? Is that speaker a part of a community that speaks a specific dialect? You know, stuff like that happens. So I definitely do think Algabisla is old at this point, mostly because a lot of the speakers I speak with all do use Gabisla, and for them it feels weird to use Agabisla, but that doesn't mean Agabisla is wrong. It's an older, maybe less used form amongst certain communities now at this point, but that is a good example. What, gee, okay. If there aren't any other questions, I can let you all go and free and have a good evening. So any other questions before I go?
I just had a side question about the Zoom technicality stuff. I live outside of the US, and if I don't use a VPN, then it doesn't let me get in. It says it's not available outside the US. I just was wondering if that's like a setting that you could just unclick so I don't have to do all that, or it's just
No,
how it is.
it's an updated policy from MCN for safety measures. So it's,
Okay.
we did ask about to see if we could. However, we were told that for safety reasons, it's part of the like a newer policy. We cannot change it. I'm happy you were able to find a way around it though. That makes me happy. And
Okay.
that you're able to come today. But the good part is the YouTube part is not set up that way. So once this
Okay.
is posted, you'll have absolute ability to access it. So
Modo.
perfect. Oh, I do want to say real quick, because Kat just mentioned 3, not D. This versus this is not the same thing. And so what you'll actually see is it listed like this in this dictionary, at least I mean. Maybe the online dictionary, they finally updated it to not do that. But what this used to mean, the 3, is it has to take third person. So this meant that it has to take third person, and if you want to use it in first person, you have to use the D form. An example would be in Nokida. I believe that'd be an example, and I think in Hisada was another example in the dictionary that does that. But what it's saying is the end part has to be is, right? The third person. If you want to show who is it, uses D. And so in this one, at least, the physical version, 3 does not equal D. But if a 3 is around, D is probably going to be around, but they don't equal the same. I hope on the online version that it has been changed, but I do not know. But just for update, in case you see one and it doesn't have a D, but it does have a 3, that way you know. Another question about dictionary. Okay, why do some nouns have M or N in front of them? How do you use them in a sentence? For example, M ondala means victor or winner. Okay. In these cases, it's meaning somebody who owns it. So M ondala would be owning the victory. Like, so I'm a winner, if that makes sense. And that kind of comes back to also how it's just used in general, right? If I'm thinking hurt, unnokis it's hurting my body, right? My unnokis is hurting my body. So it kind of does that. Mithida versus imithida. And then when you get into stuff like that, now what it means is that you're doing something for somebody. which is so not confusing. Let's see if I can find an example really fast. I just have to look in the E section. Yes, there we go. To forgive versus give forgiveness. So like me says I am forgiving, like I forgive, versus Jim me plays, which uses that im mix it up. That means I forgive you. I forgive you. So you'll see there's bonayada, right, which is to speak. And then you'll see an entry for im bonayada. And it'll say afterwards to speak to someone, right? It'll have that little parentheses, to speak to someone. And that's what the new piece is adding to that. So I'm speaking to him in bonayada. I'm speaking to you, Jim bonayada, right? Someone speaking to me, bonayada. Good question, good question. Okay. Okay, and then with that, it is 8. I've held you all for long enough. Mado so much for coming, and I hope you learned a lot. And I hope that you're able to navigate this a little easier and kind of get your questions answered a little bit more clear without feeling lost if you can't ask a speaker right away. So I hope it helped a lot. Mado for coming tonight, and have a good, safe night. So Mado,
Pero